Hello, it's Monday and it's 7 o'clock, and my name is Fredrik Sorlie. I'm from Norway, and this is Drifting Crash. Well, I'm going to apologise for that horrendous impression of Fredrik, who basically we look exactly alike. If I said we were brothers, you'd probably believe me. But yeah, I'm actually filming this at the end of the conversation I've just had with Fredrik, which was really interesting. He's a super cool dude, and I really hope you guys get something from listening to him. He's done some amazing things, and yeah, let's crack into it. Actually, just briefly before that, I just want to give a plug out, because obviously I can't really do anything with my actual car at the moment because we're still sort of stuck indoors-ish. But I'm definitely going to give a plug to Cage Laser for sending me over this t-shirt, and the Low Origin Boys for sending me over this hat. Both of which I will put links for in the description. Cage obviously do a bunch of products that you should probably have a look at, including sort of roll cages, door cards, door bars, all sorts of wonderful things. And Low Origin are just a bunch of dicks with low cars, but we love them for it. Anyway, this is Fredrik, Tusen Tak, and here's a guy from Norway. We're gonna go straight into the deep end, because we're for us this is definitely the first time, so we're just gonna get on with it. So, Fredrik, you're someone who's been in drifting for quite a while. I've mentioned you previously on a video I did about drifting history, about the time that you came over to England all the way from Norway, and in our opinion schooled us a bit, but you have a differing opinion. Now that's obviously not how you first discovered or got into drifting, but you led me into that in not the previous attempt at doing this, of being around the age of 12 and getting into go-karts, and that being your sort of first foray into driving, really. So how did that happen, and where did this go-kart thing lead you?
Yeah, so I started with go-karts when I was, I think, just after I turned 12, and I've always been interested in motorsport. My dad was always interested in motorsport. He never did any act like driving himself, but he went to like races and was a huge fan. And then at the age of 12, we just went to a go-kart track one weekend just to have a look to see what this was. And I actually remember we drove home that day with the go-kart in the back of the car. so it kind of just like, it was a no-brainer, really. It was just like, okay, this looks awesome, let's do it. So my dad was like helping me out, which is, as a 12-year-old, you need parents to support you, otherwise you can't do it. So both my parents were super supportive, and just started racing go-karts. Did 1 year of practice, and then started racing and raced around in Scandinavia and Europe.
So did any of your family have any background in racing, or this is just something you've seen go-karts, thought that'll be fun, and then that was it? You were just straight in there?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, as I said, my dad was a huge motorsport fan, but never did any racing or driving himself. So, I was the first one in the family. And then, obviously, having a younger sister and a younger brother, it became a family activity pretty immediately. Like, everyone got involved at some point. But, I was sort of the oldest one, so I was the first one out.
So you must have been reasonably good. I mean, you alluded to me that you then end up in single-seater race cars, and that you actually went quite far with that, and came to England at one point. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so when I turned 16, they changed the rules so that they lowered the age limit of single-seater racing in Scandinavia from 18 to 16 years. So we jumped on that, and I started doing what was called Formula 4 Junior, which was basically just normal Formula 4s, just older cars. So I did that for a season in Sweden, and at the end of that year, I went to the UK for the first time. That was kind of I won't call it a break, but it was kind of like the first time I got a taste of international motorsport. So we went to Brands Hatch to do the winter series in the Formula 4s. Which was pretty cool. So borrowed So a friend of mine did the Formula Ford Festival that year, and he left his car in the UK. So I got to borrow that for a good cheap price, and we were just doing it for fun. Like we were just let's check this out, see what this is. And I remember it was pouring down with rain that weekend, as it usually does in November at Brands Hatch.
Yeah, well, just in England.
And pretty much. And I remember the car that I borrowed was a 1600, the Kent engine, which was like the old Formula Fords. And this was just about the time when they started doing the 1800, the C-Techs. So most of the field was C-Tech cars. I think it was like 25 C-Tech cars, and then just a few 1600s. And I ended up qualifying third in the wet with the 1600 overall, and won that race in front of I think it was Narayan Karthikeyan, the Indian Formula 1 driver. He was on the grid, and Tom Coronel's brother, which I think we're going to end up looping back to that a little bit later. But yeah. So he was in that race. It was like a big international field, and we won that outright. And actually, even I was sideways over the finish line. Actually, that's another story. But
you were beating F1 drivers. So he was watching, or he was racing?
No, he was racing.
And you beat him. So basically, you could have been an F1 driver. That's what I'm getting.
He kind of beat himself because I think he went off the track.
He got confused by the rain, and obviously you've grown up driving around in ice and sleet.
I was comfortable in the wet. I was sliding around, having a blast, and the car was quick. I mean, I was racing for a really good team called Apollo Motorsport with Ken Bowes, who's like a Formula 4 legend in the UK. So he was doing the coaching and the alignment setup work on the car, and it was just an awesome experience. And and then we stayed in the UK for a little bit after that.
What, to continue racing, or just wandering around?
Yeah. No, I actually lived in Northampton for a little bit, and so we did. I think it was 95. We did a few races in the British Formula 4 Championship. We didn't do the full season because we were trying to do the Nordic Championship, but we did a few races at Silverstone and Brands Hatch, and also ended up doing the Formula Ford Festival at the end of the year, which was that was probably that was the highlight of my career, I think, doing that. And then kind of ran out of money pretty soon after that.
That's kind of I'd spent some time living in Silverstone in the village, and you see a lot of guys come and go who are into all kinds of motorsport, and that's the common denominator. Is at some point is the money becomes an issue, especially when you're trying to jump up a class, and the cost goes up significantly. And is that kind of what stopped you doing Formula Fords? Was just the finance of it?
Yeah, because so we ended the year with I finished second in the Formula Ford Festival, beaten only by my teammate, which was a Finnish driver who's also like the most talented Finnish racing driver ever, but also didn't have a very wealthy background or wealthy family or anything.
You can name drop him.
We were kind of both struggling. Yeah, his name was Topi Sarjala. Toni-Pekka Sarjala. Yeah, he's just amazing driver, but. And that year, actually, I think he did both the European Series and the Nordic Championship and the British Championship, and he won like 21 races or something in one year. It was outstanding. So, and it was really cool. He was a year older than me, so I learned a lot from him, and we ended up finishing 1-2 in the festival. Thinking that this was going to be it. I mean, we're going to do the C-Techs next year. We're going to win the British Championship. We got this, and. As you say, just going up one class, the budget, like, it doesn't double, it like 5 doubles or something like that. It's so crazy. So we couldn't really afford to do that. We did a few races, and then basically just had to realize that we cannot compete at this level. So that was it for the single-seater career and the Formula 1 dream that I probably had at one point.
I would imagine that, well, I know for a fact that happens to a lot of guys that sort of aspire to be an F1 is they get to a certain point, and then
there's so many amazing drivers that never get the opportunity. I think this is the part of the sport that it's just not enough focus. People don't really talk about it that much. You talk about paid drivers in Formula 1 and all that, but there's not really any focus on how hard it is for a talented driver, like how little talent has to do with it. like you have to be talented, of course, and to be picked up as a junior driver for like the big teams now, you need to be talented. But there's so many amazingly talented guys that never get to break just because they can't afford it. And
well, you need
that's sort of the downside, I guess, of that part of
exactly. You need a talent for business, and
and you need someone to back you.
Exactly.
You can't as a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid. Like it doesn't matter how amazing you're at some point gonna be chasing sponsors at that age. Like you're if no one else, if you don't have anyone to support you, you're kind of going nowhere.
So obviously that's put a bit of a dampener on this whole single seater thing. You've gone back to Norway at that stage, and you started tin top racing, and then you eventually ended up into rallying, which would then lead to drifting. I mean, obviously this is over an extended time frame. So.
Well, yeah, it's kind of, because it's like I always enjoyed driving, and for me driving is about controlling the car. I don't really I do like racing because that's sort of where I grew up, but I also enjoy rallying. I love watching other kinds of sports and like rallycross and stuff. I grew up watching rallycross, so at one point that was where I wanted to go, and so I just, as long as I'm driving something, I'm happy. And so I did. Yeah, I went back to Norway, did some tin top racing, like single make saloon car racing. I did pretty well, and after a couple of years of that, it was like it's not really a clear path from here. Like I can't really keep doing this. So we sold that car and bought a rally car to try and do some rallying. So we did rallying only did like 3, 4, 5 events. Can't remember.
And all of this period was front wheel drive tin top and front wheel drive rally car also.
Yeah, actually, yeah, all of them front wheel drives. The tin top cars was the Norwegian class. I don't think they ran it anywhere else. Well, probably in America, because it was the Chrysler Neon Cup.
Okay.
Which was you remember those? Ugly
I don't want
frog.
to remember those, but yeah, I remember those.
There's such an underrated car, man. Like if you find, actually, I'm gonna give you a tip. If you find one, because they're probably like dirt cheap in the UK. If you find one with the 2-liter 60 mile 130 horsepower engine, just buy it and try it, because the handling of that car is insane. It's so good.
I mean, I'll bear that in mind.
But here's a fun story. So they built that car to compete in the Super Touring Championship back in the day. So Mopar designed the rear suspension and everything. So if you look at it underneath, it's got like huge, like really long trailing arms with adjustable toe and camber and everything in the rear.
Oh, from stock.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it's actually like, if you look underneath, it's like this is built for something else than just grocery getting.
Oh, so it's like a little touring car.
Someone's been fiddling.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
It's built to be homologated as a touring car, but then they changed the aero rules.
Well, at one point, I did actually sell aftermarket body kits for those things. So
Okay.
That was around sort of the year 2000, I guess, like around that era. So it's sort of the same time period. So maybe you had one of my body kits. You never know.
No, we did not put body kits on them. That does not improve that car.
Depends what it's made of. But anyway, so you've done a bit of front wheel drive stuff. You've done a bit of rallying, and now you sort of, this is the moment where you're going to discover drifting, and buy a car that was realistically way beyond any newcomer to drifting whatsoever. So tell me about how you got into drifting, and tell me about the car, because the car was quite special as well. So give me the details.
So there was a couple of years here, sort of, we're skipping a bit because there was a few years where I kind of just did like random stuff, and then I started, so I think I can't remember exactly the year, but I think like 2001, 2002 I started discovering drifting, because that's when you got, like, your internet was fast enough to download a video. Like if you were patient enough to wait for a few hours. And I remember watching the Rally Kids video with Imamura and those guys with I think, was it like a brown or purple 86
dropping the wheel
like
in
that?
it was like the inside clip, and they all dropped the wheel.
It was really cool. So I think that was one of the first ones, and then the UEO videos and all those. And I kind of fell in love with the A86. I didn't at the time almost I've never seen that car before. It was so rare. So I started searching for one in Norway, and I only found one car for sale, and that was an X Group A rally car. And at the time, I was like, yeah, okay, cool, rally car, it has a cage, that's convenient. Had no idea what I bought. Didn't pay that much either. It was quite cheap. So I bought that, and it turned out that was a Group A rally car with a TRD engine. It was detuned a little bit, so it wasn't too high on power, but it still revved like 10,000 RPMs. It had a Quaife dog box. It had a Quaife or a TRD rear differential. It got like full coilover suspension, AP brakes. Like it had all the bits,
all the crazy bits,
all the goodies. Yeah. That at the time I don't think I realized quite what I had. It was just, this is.
I think that's still an amazing 86 right now. Like I'd be happy with that. Like as we are.
Yeah, probably me too.
You told me the story about the guy you bought it from. You asked him about the rev limiter.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's right.
It didn't have one, and he was revving it to 11.
I just revved it, and I was like, it does. Yeah, it just never stops.
Wow.
And I asked him like, why doesn't it ever stop? Well, where's the rev limiter? It doesn't have one. I just kept revving it like to 10,000 and like figuring out I shouldn't rev it more than that, but it still kept going, and it turned out I think it was built to rev 11,000. So yeah, it was a proper TRD Group A engine.
So basically, you've got this incredibly special car, and you start cocking about in it. Really, I'm just going to go sliding around.
Just going to track days, going to Gatebil, trying to drift it the best I could.
Did people understand?
Which at the time was just like.
Well, did people understand what you were doing then, or?
No, not really. Like somewhere. It wasn't like drifting was it was starting to sort of become. Not mainstream, but like the car guys, started to. Oh yeah, that's what they do in Japan. They had an idea of what it was, and I think it was the first one to sort of say that I was drifting. Like Gatebil has had the power slide competition for years, and we competed in drifting long before we knew what drifting was. But it was kind of like one big corner, and it wasn't really. It was more like a power slide competition, but still was like. So I think that sort of it was a gradual change. It just that became drifting, and then drifting kept evolving, and yeah.
I think we all had that sort of the power slide thing happening prior to kind of becoming involved with drifting. I remember a really nice memory for me was going to a big car show, and a guy in a Sierra Cosworth. An RS 500, like it was a real, monster of a thing. But I remember he was driving, sliding around this roundabout, making all the noises and popping flames, and I'd sort of discovered drifting online as well, and it was sort of a revelation, like it's real, like people are sliding around in cars, and
and I think so for me also. Car control has always been a big thing when I've done racing. Like I was drifting whenever it was wet. It started actually when I did go-karts. Like whenever it was wet, I wanted to go out practicing, and my dad obviously wasn't too keen on standing outside in the rain. But I didn't care. Like I just wanted to go out and drive and slide the cart around. And same thing in Formula Fords. I was drifting them whenever it was wet, just to. And I think my idea at the time, and it's still sort of my philosophy, is that if you have great car control, it doesn't matter necessarily for results or lap times, but it does matter in the instance where you get like someone hits you in the rear and you're all crossed up sideways, and then that car control may be the difference between still finishing on the podium or crashing out. And I could never afford to crash out, so I had to practice, how to save
that
the
makes
car.
a lot of sense. And I would say every person that does drift, I would imagine that the ability to drift has saved me from quite serious accidents a couple of times. Where the old classic diesel on the road, but it does happen, and when it does happen,
diesel on the road,
but it's you don't, when you've reached a certain point with drifting, you don't have to think; it's just a reaction. So, did you find that drifting?
Yeah, it becomes second nature.
Did you find that drifting then was making your racing faster, or they were completely separate at that point?
Not faster, but it definitely saved me from crashing a few times on the track and also off the track, but mostly like there was the first race that I mentioned earlier, the Winter Series race at Brands Hatch. So I mentioned that I was sideways over the finish line, and the reason was that I was fourth or something going into the final corner, and I went like there's I don't know how familiar you are with Brands Hatch. I guess a lot of people watching this has probably been to Brands Hatch, and we ran the Indy circuits. So through clearways, I found that on the outside there was more grip, but obviously you have like 10 centimeters before in the gravel trap, so it's a bit of sketchy. But I knew that I had grip, and I had been in the lead for a while, and then I kind of gone off the road and let a couple of cars by, and I wanted to win that back. I had one corner left, and I knew that if I just take the outside line all the way to the white line, I will have more grip, and I will get a higher exit speed. So I went around 2 cars, and one of the guys saw it, and he tried to stay with me, and I had more grip than him, so he lost the rear and hit me with his car when he spun. So I was like fully on the lock stops going like onto the main straight at Brands Hatch in the Formula Ford and won the race with like a few car lengths. So that was my first big win, and it was because I had the car control to save the car. And obviously, that's probably been a big part of why I've sort of developed this philosophy that it's a good thing to practice car control, even though you might not need it to go fast. And some people think it's why are you wasting your time sliding around? You can't, but it's, to me, it makes sense.
You might need it to save yourself at some point. I would agree with that for sure. So, right, moving on, because we're getting a bit stuck on points of detail. You then, I mean, this is the era you've got your Corolla and you've come to England. I mean,
yeah,
it's a bit of a weird thing to do at that period of time, because it was still drifting was still very small in England. So you've headed over.
Yeah.
Why? How? What happened?
If I only remembered. I remember that I somehow found out, probably through a forum or something, because this was in 2004, so there was no Facebook or anything. But I remember looking for drifting events, because at the time I had the 86. I've done a couple of organized actually a drift event in Norway just to see if, and we got some people along, and drifting was sort of becoming a term. But there was no competitions, no organized practice, no events, nothing. So I was like, well, where do I go to compete in this sport? Because I've been competing for 10 years already. I want to compete more. So yeah, I found that there was a D1 UK or something. I think it was
maybe
called
something like that. Yeah. Or
yeah,
or OPT
they had
drift or something. I don't know. Yeah.
No, I'm pretty sure it was D1 UK back then, and that was at Silverstone. So I wanted to go there, and then someone told me, yeah, but that event is on the Saturday, but on the Sunday, there will be an official Japanese D1 event at Birmingham Wheels, and I'm like, nah,
just
not buying that.
Just so people have got the reference, Birmingham Wheels is a banger oval.
Tiny little.
Yeah, in the middle of a city, quite a rough city, Birmingham. It's a good old place full of good people, but it's
it's cool. It was awesome, but but we didn't know that. So and people were telling me, Ken Nomura's gonna be there, and they're gonna have D1 organizers there, and I'm like,
no,
this sounds this sounds like something that's made up. But I figured, well, I'm here on the Saturday anyway. Let's go with the guys. And I met you guys at Silverstone, and we were all competing in the D1 UK. And then I think we went out for beer afterwards and just got in the cars. And I think actually we probably drove first. I think we just got in the cars right after the event and went to Birmingham, didn't we?
I couldn't tell you. I mean, if we all got in cars together at the same time, then something silly probably happened. But
yeah, I do remember that I brought quite a lot of rear tires over, and I actually had to change them going from Silverstone to Birmingham. So I'm not gonna reveal more than that. But yeah, it was a very fun trip.
Did you know anyone before you came to England, or did you just met us there?
No, nope, never.
Wow.
But you guys were. I remember you guys were being super friendly. Like, so I remember. I think the first guy I talked to was Julian from Garage D.
Yeah.
So he came over and we were chatting a bit, and I remember. I remember talking to him at Silverstone. I think he might be the one that sort of convinced me to go with you guys to Birmingham Wheels. I can't remember if he was there though, but I think he mentioned it anyway.
I think he must have been there, or maybe he wasn't. I'm not sure. I remember him in an E.
This is so long ago, I can't remember.
I'll ask him at another time. Yeah.
But I remember him, and he was this skinny little Irish guy.
There's not many people who remember that. Sorry, Julian.
Oh, that was fun. He was awesome, and then obviously I met you and Phil and James Robinson. I think was probably there. Ben was there. James
Paz
was there. Wolfsnome. Paz was there. And probably tons of more guys.
Well, there wasn't very many of us there at all. I mean, I can't remember there being more than 30 people. I mean, it was. I remember.
Maybe.
I remember we all had to go and wait while Nomura practiced in somebody's car. Maybe he tried your car.
Yes,
he didn't.
He was in my car.
He didn't like it, so we had to get him another car.
He hated it. Like, he couldn't drive it for me. I don't think he got one drift in. I think he just went around and he tried a couple of times and spun and just, didn't like it at all. And to be fair, I mean, it was quite horrible. It was a rally car with a gravel suspension that I put super stiff springs on, but it was kind of underdamped, so it was a bit bouncy. And it had a quick steering rack from, I can't remember what brand it was, but it wasn't like the stock steering rack. It was some rally, short travel one. So I think I probably had less lock than the stock 86. I probably had like.
And the steering was a lot more sensitive as well.
And so heavy because it didn't have power steering, so it was like.
And of course,
Nomura was a
small
guy. So, yeah, so I think he struggled to steer the thing. I think he ended up driving a R33 or something, and he was amazing in that. But in my car, he was.
Well, driving the 33, it was eye-opening to say the least. He was so smooth and controlled and fast, and just everything that we weren't. At Birmingham Wheels, you came second. No, you won that event, and then I came second or third, or James came second or third. But I can't remember which way round it was. And obviously, I'd love for me to have been second and James to have been third, because that's good for me. But I genuinely at this point can't remember.
No, I'm not 100% sure either. But I think I do remember watching. So I know I won it because we did like a way over the top celebration. And I remember doing donuts around James's car, so I think he was second because I think he was in the final with me.
Oh yeah, that's true. And then
he was like standing in the door.
Killed him. Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah, we were idiots.
I did kill the engine, I think, because we went back home to Norway after that, and we did a little video with on a go-kart track, like a drift video, the first Norwegian, drift video. And at the end, I had like rod knock like crazy on that engine, so I probably stayed on 10,000 for a bit too long.
So you came to England, you wrecked your car, and you left. Well, firstly, you left an impression with us guys because, like I said, I've said it to you previously, but particularly Chris Parry always speaks about your driving at that event with really high regard. And that he thinks you instigate, and I agree with him. He thinks you instigated quite a change in our driving and our approach because you were so committed to what you were doing, I think, which kind of was a kick up our butts because I don't think we were that, like, obviously, I think at that stage Phil and James were starting Driftworks, but I think maybe you were just like, I don't know, you were just so hungry to go and drift. Maybe it's the previous motorsport experience because we were just all idiots, really.
I think that's the. So I've noticed that in later years that the guys that come from motorsport, like a racing background, versus guys from any other background, really, it's a bit different approach to drifting. You can see it a bit in Fredrik Sorlie as well. Like he used to be on the national go-kart team in Norway, and he was doing really well. So I think that having that speed and that like chasing the right lines and stuff, it's probably a good thing in drifting. Whereas it's also in some areas is a bit of a handicap because you're so like dialed into, like for me, except for example, like if I was to do drifting now and they would have like an outside clip, like an outside line through a corner, like scraping the wall or something, I would struggle so hard to do that because that's just against all my previous training. Like I would struggle to sort of have a apex behind me. I need to have it, on the inside. So so there's different approaches, and I think what I brought to the UK back then, what I can remember at least, was basically just speed. I think it was the like sacrificing, not doing the manji on the straight, because and also I think it was something that is now very important is that I listened to what Nomura wanted, like when he explained in the driver's briefing, this is what I want, and I think a lot of the guys kind of missed out on a few little details that he mentioned. And I think I managed to sort of, pick up on that and utilize that.
I would definitely agree with that. I mean, looking back on it, it was only really, I think, me and you that were sort of trying to go faster and run straight to reinitiate.
He wanted that. I remember he wanted us to get close to the wall and sort of flick it into the corner rather than doing like a big manji, which I like as well. Like that's like I don't think drifting I've never really understood that drifting down the main straight thing. Like when people do manji down the straight, I'm like, why? I mean, that straight is quite long. You can get up like 200k and flick it sideways. That's a lot more awesome.
Because then you need a big old pair of shiny things to do that, shiny bald heads.
Do you though, or do you just need like practice and skill? Because I don't think it's got too much to do with having balls. That's where I differ from a lot of. I remember talking to a lot of people about this over the years, and I seem to have a different approach in a way. Because as I mentioned, like to me, this has never been about the adrenaline rush or being in danger or doing crazy things for the thrill of it. It's been controlling the vehicle and being in control of the car at all times. So for me, it seems like I do not feel brave or courageous when I throw the car in backwards, because I wouldn't do it unless I felt that I was 100% in control of the car, even when going at more than 90 degrees. And I think that's sort of. I would never applaud anyone just doing something crazy because they're brave. To me, that's just taking a necessary risk. But I don't know. There's probably different opinions, and some people maybe enjoy that rush. I'm not sure if this is going to work, but I'm going to try it. But that's kind of celebrated, and to me that doesn't really make sense, because I would rather celebrate someone who's good than someone who's just being stupid.
I think there's definitely a balance between bravery and stupidity. But you can be brave, but with a calculated risk. But I think that's what I'm saying. But it's just to me that's not being brave. It's just. Yeah, it's calculated risk for sure, but I think it's easy to be like bravery is when you don't have talent or you don't have skill, and your drive to succeed is far greater than your the amount of fear you feel that holds you back. So I think there's a balance there, but anyway, that is a whole other topic for us.
Yeah, we can talk about that for hours probably. And but there's definitely, to me at least, it's not so much about being brave as it is being confident and sort of believing in what I can do and practice hard to get better at it.
Well, that definitely reflected well from Birmingham, because you were already very comfortable in your car, and you know that's probably why you won, because you already instilled that mentality in yourself. But moving forwards, because otherwise we're going to talk about.
I'm going to get stuck on this. Yeah.
Ethos towards drifting and everything. But so you've come over, you've kicked our butts, but you've also learned a few things, and you know I think you've got a taste for drifting competition, which you've then taken back to Norway, and you've started trying to set up your own events. So can you take me through that?
Absolutely. So I got back to Norway. That was 2000. Was it autumn 2004 or something? I think we're in the UK. So that winter,
maybe
I sold the A86 because I blew up the engine. I think I went to the UK, like 2005. I think I went to the UK to buy an S13. And I brought that back home and tried to get that to work, and that had all sorts of different problems and eventually caught on fire. And I realized,
was it a CA engine?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah. It was. The thing is, I love the CA engine. Actually, it's. I think it sounds cool, and it was a fun car, but I just never had the money to make it like proper. So it was like a bit of a budget build, and it just kept breaking. And then we did Gatebil and those kinds of events, but there was no drift events. There was no competitions or anything, and I kind of missed that. And I realized, well, I'm not going to be able to afford to compete myself, like on the level that I want to. And at the time, there was still quite limited what you could do around Europe. Like Sweden had nothing, Denmark not really. Like you had to go to the UK. I think UK at the time was UK and Ireland was the only countries that really kind of had drifting back then. Like Germany still really doesn't, and I'm gonna offend someone now, but
I think Holland maybe had some small things going on.
Yeah, maybe, but it was still kind of grassroots level. And I wanted to see if I could somehow organize events and sort of make drifting a thing in Norway.
Yeah.
So I started working back then, I think probably like late 2005, maybe 2006, working with the Norwegian Motorsport Federation to get drifting approved as a motorsport, like as a separate genre. And I got that, and we had like a license day or something like that in 2006 with like turn up, I think we're like 120 cars and like 2,000 spectators, something like that. It was crazy. That was really, really good, and I think we had a few like test events kind of in 2006, just like a single race just to see. And I remember actually for one of them, Graham McNamara was there judging, and we got like some info and tips from them. So I started then looking at 2007 to organize a drifting series. So that's what I focused on at the time, and spent all winter, writing the technical regulations, the competition sort of format, and sort of preparing everything. And then we started in 2007, which was then the first year of competition with Drift Battle, which was our series. So that was interesting. I felt at the time that we got really far, like we were ahead of the rest of Europe in many ways. We had a contract signed with Formula Drift even to have used their brand sort of to become, the Norwegian Formula Drift series, and things were looking good.
I mean, that's quite an amazing place to be in. Obviously, that didn't happen. So,
nope.
What went wrong? Because obviously, this stage, like you kind of wrapped everything up and sort of vanished. Really, it was kind of a where did Fredrik go? So what went wrong, man? What was it?
I don't want to go into too much detail, but I've never told this story, so I think we can do like just a quick run through it. So, as with everything, when you start something like this, you look to find like partners to do it with because it's too much for one person.
Absolutely.
So I started this for Drift Battle series with two friends of mine. Still friends of mine, I have to point that out, but we did have a little falling out. But and the way I remember it, this is just my side of the story, but I spent probably like something like 750 hours getting everything up to, like working on this, because I actually kept like sort of track of it, because it was at the time we were trying to build a business. I was like using, like I got up in the morning, I worked with this all day, and then that was sort of my job, and I didn't have any money to put into it, and it, obviously starting a series like that, it takes some investment. So I had two friends of mine, and they were going to invest not a lot of money, but just enough to sort of get a company up and running and get all the paperwork sorted, so we have like an official company and insurance and all those things. And that's the only thing they had to do, was just invest their part of the money, and then I would do all the work, which you can value work however you want, depends on what you agree on. But we agreed that was going to be 1/3 of the company, and I worked and I did all this, like all my sort of my tasks, and when the season started, we still didn't have a company, which meant that when we hire a track to organize an event, I had to sign personally on the contract. And worst case scenario, if someone crashes and dies, that was then my personal responsibility, and they could sue me. That's why we wanted a company, because that's why you have to have a company.
You get some protection.
Exactly, the company is responsible. The company is insured, and they can't go after you personally. They can for liability probably, but still. So to me that was a big problem, because that meant that for the first two events that year, I was personally responsible for everything, both the risk and the health of everyone, but also for the money. Having to sign up for the taking the cost of everything, and that really annoyed me. And I then basically, and this is where I probably went wrong, is that I basically tried to kick my friends out of the whole project. Basically just saying, you guys haven't done your part, I'm just gonna go on my own from now on. And that created a conflict that could have and should have been avoided. But you get angry and you get fed up, and you don't really. I don't know. I wasn't too political about it. I was just,
I think sometimes we have the expression, it's cutting your nose off to spite your face. So, you sort of do something that ultimately will be bad for you, but you just feel that you need to vent it out also, anyway.
And also, I don't think I realized the consequences. To me, it was obvious, you guys, I did my part, you guys didn't do your part. Well, that's my opinion. And so this is simple. This is it's my thing. I'll just keep doing what I do, and I don't need you guys anymore. But obviously, when we started this thing, they were a part of the process of the naming and the branding and all that stuff, and that's enough legally to know. So what happened was basically the championship split into two championships.
Yeah.
And I finished that season running my championship for the rest of the season, but it was so much hassle and arguing, and drivers confused about which series to run, and I was like, I'm not, this is not worth it. So I basically at the time just packed everything up and just walked away from drifting completely.
Lost the love.
Yeah, but I guess it just became hassle. It wasn't fun.
So,
and even organizing, I loved organizing. I think that was really a fun thing to do. It was fun to organize competitions and all that stuff, but it's not fun when you have to fight for it.
Yeah, well that was something I was going to get to, is that a lot of the time, from my perspective, in the sort of history of drifting is guys come along that run events, and really they don't want to be running events, they want to be driving at them. But I think certainly in the earlier part of drifting, the guys who were running events were drivers, so there was a real conflict of interest there.
That was the problem here as well. Like that's actually that was the reason why they didn't get around to do their thing, was they were also competing in the series, and I completely understand it. Like I wasn't at the time actually angry with them either. I was just like, well, why are you in this? Because you're like, why don't I just organize it and you can come drive? I mean, that's what we're doing anyway. And I didn't realize probably how much they felt that they were a part of it, or how much ownership they sort of had. So that was my mistake from sort of going at it the wrong way. But they're still friends of mine, and it was just I think the part that sort of is the saddest thing about it is that at the time we had a verbal agreement with the federation to have it as an official sanctioned series, like a Norwegian championship kind of. I had the deal with Formula Drift on my table, like on my desk.
Yeah.
We had a verbal agreement that for the next year we would lower the age limit for drifting to 15 years. From 18 at the time.
Yeah.
So we had all these amazing things lined up that if that had happened, I think Norway would be the pinnacle. Well, still, like drifting is still good in Norway, but I think with that we would be the leading company or leading
I would say
series and leading country in
you would have been the center of drifting in Europe. And I think
and that never happened.
I mean the spiritual home of drifting in Europe is England, I think.
I think so too.
Just because
England and Ireland, probably.
Yeah, and now very much Ireland, because I just think there's so much talent that comes from that one.
But it's always
place.
been like the UK has always been the place to go. Even if you like whether you do rallying or racing or whatever you do, England is the motorsport mecca. That's where all the
Silverstone,
talent is. I don't know why, but I remember that from the Force as well. Like there was no other. Like there was going from doing a British Championship race. And then going to Scandinavia or maybe I never went south, but like Topia I remember went and did like a European series, and it was like the level of competition in those countries compared to the UK was like you couldn't compare it. Like the UK was miles ahead, so much faster.
I will take that as a compliment as an Englishman.
Yes, you
we'll
should
have that one. Thank
you guys. It's a mentality thing. It's the way you guys. It's the culture. It's how you go about things. Like you're very result oriented, in a way that I don't know. It's just that I remember. So do you remember? This is we're gonna go to
somewhere
completely
else.
Different.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Do you remember British touring cars back in the late 80s with the Sierra Cosworths, the Texaco, Eggenberger cars, and
of course.
Andy Rouse and those guys?
Yeah.
Have you seen the engine bay of the Eggenberger cars?
I can't recollect it from memory, but I'm pretty sure I can Google it after this.
It's mint. Like it looks, all the parts are machined and it's clean and it looks perfect. And then you have Andy Rouse's cars, which is like zip ties and duct tape and and Andy Rouse always won, and Eggenberger cars were always second. Because you guys were like, well, we just need this car to go fast.
Exactly.
I think that's like there's no compromise. It's like, and I think that's the UK, like the attitude you guys have towards probably any sport, but at least in most sport, is that it's all about the lap time. Nothing else matters, and I think that's a good thing.
I think in drifting we sort of, in more recent times, we've sort of lost that, and the Irish guys have it. But it's something that's also shared with the Japanese spirit of drifting, is that do what you need to do to get the job done, and then drive. Like worry about driving. So I think
so it's funny you say that, because you're probably right. Like drifting is the one motorsport where we kind of lost that a little bit, which is weird because that's what drifting is all about.
Absolutely.
I would say it's a bit like that. I'm not gonna go out on a. I'm not gonna risk being creating controversy in the comment section.
Do it. Just go.
but I see that with like so. As much as I love all kinds of drifting and all drifting series, I watch Formula Drift. I watch some of the Irish stuff and the although I don't follow it as closely anymore, but still I enjoy every aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that a lot of the professional big series now kind of lost touch with the original concept of drifting, because drifting to me was always sort of like a anti-movement, like a punk movement.
Yeah,
where
that
you
makes
kind
sense,
of wanted to. It was a lot sort of rebellious towards the regular motorsport, and it wasn't about lap time anymore. It was about having your own style, having your own bringing attitude and flamboyant driving, and now it's so result oriented that you end up with this weird sport where you kind of have to over-regulate it. Like it has to be so. I don't even know how to describe
there's a lot,
it. But
all I'll say is there's a lot of clipping points these days.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's so like what do you call it?
Regimented.
When you have conformity. Yeah. I guess that's. And to me, that's weird because it's completely the opposite of the actual like the idea that the sort of the attitude that started drifting in the first place.
I think that's like an old. Now that sort of mentality is seen as quite old school, but I think also it should, for me, be where the grassroots of drifting remains. Because grassroots, I think people confuse grassroots with meaning low skill. But some of the best guys have the simplest cars, and it's not about budget. But that kind of leads us on to, well, with a bit of an interlude, it sort of leads us on to where you bought the Cressida and the purpose of you buying that Cressida. Well, before we get into that, I know that you then had basically a couple of years where you, like say, you disappeared. You bought your comfort car, which is obviously the Volkswagen Beetle. So every time Fredrik gets sad, he buys himself a Volkswagen Beetle and cuddles it.
But that doesn't mean I'm always sad. Like if I buy a Beetle, it doesn't mean I'm sad.
Well, it makes you happy.
It is the car that makes me really happy. Yeah.
And you also began.
Yeah, you're right.
You also began photography around that era as well, which is like the 2008-ish mark.
Yeah, probably. So because I walked away from drifting and was like, I'm not going to do this. I still enjoyed watching drifting, and I still enjoyed Gatebil and motorsport in general. So, and I met a friend of mine that I got to know that was a photographer, Alexander, and I started like hanging out with him. I bought a decent camera, and I started going to I think that what sort of sparked it was that I went with a friend of mine who was doing the Danish touring car championship. Yeah, it was like the highest level S2000 touring car championship in Scandinavia at that time. And I remember I got a press pass for that, and I started I had no idea what I was doing. I just brought the camera out on track and started fiddling with the settings, and I've seen these guys that sort of you get the stripes behind the car. How did they do that? Fiddling with it. I'm trying to figure it out, and sort of got the hang of panning the camera, like low shutter speeds and sort of that kind of stuff. And I was like, this is really cool. Yeah. So I got into that as a hobby, but as with all hobbies, someone comes along and says, well, could you do this, for a living for a little bit? Or can I pay you to do this? And so we started following the Norwegian Racing Championship around, doing the official photography for that. And at the time, I was still doing, so all this time, from early 2000, I was working as a web designer. I have my own company. So I was still doing that, but didn't generate any money. So I don't think I ever made any money.
I think you were
from the drifting organizing as well. It was always breaking even and being broke.
Well, you were telling me that you weren't really making any money web designing because you were too particular about what you were doing, so you spent far too long in every job. So I'm not going to diagnose myself with OCD, but I do have
I do like it when all the code is perfectly lined up with, everything looks nice.
You have a very
even though it
meticulous
doesn't have to.
nature.
Yeah, very.
Yeah.
Which, it's probably also because of racing. It's my racing background. I know that, if you want results, you have to be, into the details. So, but to make money doing websites, that's not really
You got to churn them
not
out.
the best approach.
No.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, exactly. Anyway, so, so we did the photography for a bit, and then, I think, I bought the Beetle. Didn't do any motorsport myself. But I did eventually. I did miss drifting, so I kind of wanted to do drifting, but I didn't think I could afford it. So I was so broke at the time and that's why I bought the Cressida, because I was so broke. I sold the Beetle because I needed a vintage car because they're cheap to run. Because in Norway cars are crazy expensive, so I wanted a vintage car, but I wanted one that I could drive in the winter that actually had a heater that worked. So I was looking around on the internet and I found this 1977 Toyota Cressida, the 4-door. I was like, that's cool. I can sell the Beetle, buy that car, still have some money left. That's a good runaround. So I bought that. I figured like, okay, it looks cool. I was into Japanese cars and stuff, so I obviously knew that like put some cool old school wheels on it and chop the springs and it's gonna look quite cool.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then it just sort of escalated from there with the... So my plan was just to run it as a daily driver, no modifications at all. Just, chopping the springs, put wheels on, that's it.
So with the Cressida, I mean, you were also telling me, and I'm sorry to take it this way, but you were also telling me that in your personal life at that stage, you're having kind of a shit time, you split up with your girlfriend, you're real down in the dumps. So because I just want people to understand, because the way you've expressed it to me is that this car kind of rescued you from yourself.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of I'm totally happy to go there because as you said, personally at that time I was doing the photography and that was fun. I had the Beetle, that was fun. But at the same time, it wasn't that like I wasn't depressed or anything, but my girlfriend we did split up and we've been together for 10 years. It was not that like it was a nice breakup. We're still friends. It was just like came to an end. It wasn't so I wasn't like heartbroken or sad or anything, but I did kind of end up, as I was working from home, you just get stuck in your own little bubble and like I didn't really see where to go from there. Like I didn't have a clear path anymore. Like I always had this drive to go, driving. I was either competing or I was organizing events, and I always had this thing that I had to do to move forward. And suddenly I was kind of stuck and like I have no projects. I have like I don't really see what I can do to change the situation I'm in.
Yeah.
So I was kind of stuck, and I think I'm just gonna, get stuck here doing websites for 20 more years by myself. Get this like feeling kind of lonely, I guess. And I was always broke. I'm not a good businessman, so I didn't really understand how much money I needed to make to break even. So I was always making not working. I was working hard enough, but I wasn't, as you said, I was just spending way too much time doing silly stuff rather than actually just creating and producing. So I bought the Cressida as a daily driver, but I took it to David. So David Reber, who's the guy that runs Underground Garage in Norway, he's like a Toyota specialist. He used to run Fredrik Sorlie's GT86 for a few years, and he's just this Toyota genius. Like he knows everything about those cars inside out. Yeah. He did help me, I think. I can't remember exactly. We did meet at a drift event because he used to have a KA70 drift car with a 4AG in it.
Oh, cool.
And I remember, so and he was like, he's this, like he was bunta, like he's this like quiet guy with like the cigarette and like he's such a cool guy. He's such a character. If you ever met him, you'll like he's something else. And he kind of planted the seed that, well, why don't we, put a super engine or something in the Cressida? And at the time I was like, I cannot afford to build a drift car out of that car. I don't have the money. And he was like, yeah, but you can get these parts, this engine, like the non-turbo 2JZ, you can get that really cheap.
Yeah.
So we found one really cheap, so I bought that. And then he said, well, he did all the labor, all the fabrication. He sort of helped me building this car, and we kind of...
So just to clarify, how many times did you met David? Like, how well did you know him? Is he just kind of gone, I think you need an engine, let's go? Like, how did that...
I did, well, we were friends, but I can't remember how many times, but like we've sort of bumped into each other over the years, and I probably like asked him for help, when we cut the springs on the Cressida. I remember I went to his garage and we did that there, so we did hang out, but like not that much. But after I got the Cressida, we hung out more, and I ended up like leaving the car at his garage, and he took the engine out, put the 2JZ back in, created a new cross member, and sort of we converted it from the steering box to the rack and pinion to get more steering lock. And that car actually has, well, we didn't modify the body, but if we had, like the steering geometry was like we could get more than 70 degrees of steering lock.
Oh wow, yeah.
So it was pretty cool. He created, and he designed all that. He made all the parts and everything. So, but as I didn't have any money, like everything was a prototype. Like everything was just like, well, let's see if this works. And it kind of worked. So he, at that time, I would say, I'm not going to go as far as saying he saved my life, but he definitely turned my life around and gave me a clear path from there, which is something very, very special.
Well, this is the cool part of your story, I think, because now you would be someone that I consider to be successful. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're the richest man on the planet, because I don't measure success that way, but you're certainly like, you're now in a position where you've got like an NSX and you're racing Lamborghinis, and we'll come to that because that's insane. But
things that definitely change.
Yeah, I mean, I think David might have just been saving a Toyota rather than helping you, but certainly
I don't think any of us at the time realized what he was doing or what we were doing, but he
definitely did amazing things.
He did play like he was the main driving force in turning my life completely around and sort of making me see a possibility, and sort of just having someone believing in you and supporting you and like pushing you to do something where you kind of just give it up a bit and like, but I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. And he was like, yeah, come on. And it meant a lot. Like, I don't think I realized almost at the time, but now I see that, that not just the car, but like to me personally, having someone who's like, I could see he's putting in time and effort and creating something for me to enjoy. That was probably like, it wasn't new to me, but it was definitely special.
I think probably if I spoke to Fredrik Asbo, I would imagine he would say something very similar, because obviously both of you guys have worked with David, and then obviously your careers have snowballed from there. So certainly the next thing you did, and I'm not quite sure which way around it helped, but you got involved with a company called Moviebird.
Yes.
And you started filming things that you took your photography a bit further and started filming things on a bit of a grander scale. Explain to me about Moviebird, and then how that kind of related to the Cressida.
Yeah, so all of this is basically all my life I've been doing as a hobby, motorsport, racing, drifting, all that kind of stuff. And professionally, I've always been a graphic designer, web designer, doing visual stuff. And what's happened is that the Cressida sort of brought these two worlds together. So it started probably with Fredrik Asbo being cast as sort of there was a Norwegian feature film called Burning, and the villain kind of in that, he's not really a villain, but it's like a protagonist, or no, what's it called? Yeah, the other way around. Anyway, so his car was sort of the villain's car, and the hero drove a yellow '67 Mustang. So they wanted, the Japanese drift car is sort of the complete opposite of that. So Fredrik's GT86 was the villain's, car in that film, and Fredrik did all the stunt driving. And then I think thanks a lot to Fredrik, but also a couple of the other guys involved, I managed to sort of land the role of the second precision stunt driver for that film. So I was doing a lot of stunts with Fredrik. He was driving his car. I was driving the other cars. There was a few other cars in the film that also needed some like drifting scenes and stuff like that. So I drove those cars, and we ended up going on the road for like a month, traveling all over Norway, shooting this amazing road trip movie. Because the movie is about a race from the south of Norway to the north of Norway, which is a long way. Like if you drive non-stop, it's like a 21-hour drive or something. So it's quite far.
I think it's a bigger country than people think.
It's just very long and narrow.
Yeah.
So the film was basically shot on location all the way through all these amazing places in Norway. It was a fantastic experience. And there I met the guys from Moviebird, which is a company in Oslo that specializes in grip and technical equipment for movies. So they have like cranes and wire cams and like helicopter cams and all those kinds of different things. And they
the Russian arm is your speciality, isn't it?
Yeah. So for that film, they built what is now known as a Russian arm, which is quite of become a term worldwide. It's basically an ML55 AMG SUV, like the old one.
Yeah, the big brick-looking thing.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's been modified. It's the most expensive car I've ever driven, and that includes Lambo.
Wow.
It's just this amazing piece of kit. It has a huge gyro stabilized crane on the roof with a camera and a gyro head at the end. So you can basically use it to film anything, really. You can drive and shoot action scenes with cars. You can have the camera basically just flying around the car like in a computer game and get all these amazing shots, and use it for anything from hardcore action scenes to just smooth like shots for car commercials, like beauty shots, and it's a very versatile and amazing piece of equipment. And they built that for that movie, but being a precision driver, they didn't have any driver for the camera car. So they asked me during shooting, like, when this is over, do you want to come try and drive for us do a couple of jobs and see if you like it? I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, I'll drive anything. And that was when the first time was sort of my racing background and my photography and visual background sort of came together and merged into one. And suddenly I was driving this amazing camera gear around and shooting all this fantastic stuff, and that sort of became my main business and has been since then.
I mean, what an amazing thing to happen, though, because I think it's so easy along the journey and of what you're doing, obviously starting racing and then beginning photography, and to come from such a low point for suddenly everything to work out and fall into place. I think that's something that it's very good for people to hear, because if I'd understood that a bit more when I was like 20, I think I'd be in a much better position a lot sooner. And I could probably say the same for yourself, that
but I don't think you can. I don't think you can be at that point when you're 20, because you have to have the experience and you have to go through this process, and like life is not something you can control. And personally, like I'm a realistic guy, and I honestly don't think like nothing in this life has is written or planned or has a purpose. It's all what you make of it. It's all a series of choices that leads you to this place. And I think the main change, like the main thing that I personally did to make this happen, was just to go, well, let's try it. Just
Yeah.
say yes. Say, like, grab opportunities. Don't be afraid of, like, oh no, I can't do that because, maybe
Someone
it
will
won't
think
work out.
this, or-
Yeah, or so. Just if you want to do it, just do it. Unless it's murdering someone. But as long as it's as long as it's within the law and you're being a nice guy, or girl, just do whatever you want. I'm not gonna say follow your dreams because that's a cliche. Because not everyone can, like, not all dreams come true for sure. But definitely, like, if you get an opportunity to do something that you want to do, don't be scared. Like, just do it.
Follow positive opportunities. That's probably a good way to
take risks.
Yeah.
Like, don't be scared of failure.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal.
Yeah.
But the next big risk you take on your journey is getting involved with Moviebird and making a promotional film. What was the first one you made with the Cressida?
It was Bring Back the Toga. I think we
Bring Back the Toga. Yeah. So that went a bit viral, didn't it?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I think it's got more than 1 million views. So it was pretty good.
That would be viral, yes.
Yeah, like within its genre, but so yeah, we wanted to do something together. We talked about this for a bit. So I've already worked for them for a bit more than a year or maybe 2 at the time. We had been talking about this several times. Like, let's do something. Like, let's create our own little project and see if we can get some attention and do something fun. So we locked down a road, which is like the closest thing we get to a tog near Oslo, which is a bit south of Oslo. It's this amazing piece of road that goes sort of over a hill with like all these amazing little bends. And we took the Russian arm, and we brought also we had I don't know if I think you could see it in a video briefly. This Can-Am Spider was like a 3-wheeled little motorcycle thing. And it looks like a snowmobile, but just with wheels. So they put a camera on that. So we had like a behind the scene thing. So where we, like, the Russian arm was kind of part of the hero shots. So we filmed sort of behind the scenes, but it was also, so it was a mix of footage from the Russian arm, but also some behind the scenes footage. And it was a lot of slow motion because we didn't have a sound recorder with us. So we had a friend of mine who's a music producer, write custom music for the film. So everything is like custom made with the sounds and the music and the slow motion and everything. So it was quite a high production value for the budget of like 200 euros or whatever it was.
Wow, yeah. That was basically the fuel for the cars, yeah.
Yep, pretty much. and some like baguettes or something.
And that was to basically just promote what the company Moviebird was capable of. I'm guessing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and it was, to me, it was self-promotion basically, and having fun. I mean, it was just in the end, we were just a bunch of friends who just closed down the road and had some fun. But it did sort of lead to more. It was a promotional thing, and it was sort of trying to build a brand around the Cressida and me, and because I could tell so the Cressida obviously was sort of became what it was because of a budget problem. Like, I didn't have the money to build an amazing car. I couldn't build a 1,000 horsepower Supra, so I kind of like went, well, we have to do something different. So as I have no money, let's just build a car that can barely do what I need to, like, just make it just good enough to do what it has to do, and then not spend any more money on it. So we're kind of like an anti. It was more true to what I think is sort of it was true to what I think is the sort of the basic idea behind drifting in the first place. Is just take a car and push it. And I wanted to show people that you didn't need an expensive high power
1,000 horsepower TJ. Yeah.
And also I was a bit annoyed watching drifting and seeing all these amazing cars being driven by guys who spent so much time in the garage that they didn't have any seat time and they couldn't drive them. And that was kind of annoying to me. Like, drifting should be about being a good driver, not having an awesome car. Like, it could be both, but if you're building an awesome car, if you have 1,000 horsepower, you need to use them. Because if you only use 500 of them, then what's the point?
I think when we've spoken about it previously, there's a different energy in the driving between a low power car, or not necessarily a low power car, but a 400 horsepower car and a 1,000 horsepower car. There's a different way to make that car move. And a lower powered car just requires more input, I guess, because there's less ability to recover. Yeah.
So a low powered car or low-ish powered car, anything below 400, I would say is a somewhat low powered. It forces you to use momentum and speed and line to be competitive and drift properly. Whereas in a high-powered car, you can get away with more. But at the same time, when you see guys like Fredrik or Tor Anders Ringnes and the other Norwegian guys with high-powered cars, and see them push those cars to the limit, that's another level. That's when Fredrik is putting rev limiter in fourth around the Breisdal corner, just pouring smoke on huge semi-slick tires. I mean, that's energy for sure, but a lot of the guys don't do that. So.
Well, Fredrik came from low-powered cars. He came from
exactly
was it an E30 or something?
E30, but it did have an M3 engine, but was still.
That doesn't count. That doesn't count.
No, it was probably like a 300 horsepower car, but it required him to drive it. You had to, and he also, as I said before, he has a racing background as well, so it makes sense for him to carry some speed. So, I'm not saying a 1,000 horsepower car can't be driven with energy and commitment, but it doesn't necessarily require it. Whereas a low power car forces you to use that momentum and the speed, and to me that it was just building a car that could do where I could basically. It's a bit cocky because I honestly, but I'm gonna admit
just go for it. Yeah,
it was honestly, I wanted to prove that skill was more important, and just by saying that, I'm kind of also saying, I want to show off my own skills.
Yeah, but you're a good driver, or you wouldn't be where you are. So I don't think it's.
At least I felt confident that I could do things with that car that guys with better cars could not do. I think that's sort of. And
now it's getting cocky.
I guess a little bit. No, but it was an anti. I wanted to do something opposite to everyone else. Basically, that's it. And I didn't have any other options either, so it was like it was just inevitable, and it worked out. I
was going to say, how did the second movie? Because you made a second one with the Cressida as well. So how did that work out? Because obviously you've done this once, and I just want to say this before you kind of finish what you're saying, is that people have actually responded to it in exactly the way that you wanted them to, which was, here's a guy in an old school car, absolutely wringing its neck, taking everything out of the car possible, and the interest in that was enough that you've then made a second one. So what was the process of coming into the second film? Obviously, what was it called? Because my brain is awful.
It's called Scandinavian Flick Fest, which is a play on the Scandinavian Flick. Because we did that in the winter, so we did that. There's a snowy road. It's actually quite close to where I live now, and there's a snowy road that goes parallel to a dual carriageway. So it's not really in use anymore. So we got to close that down, and we shot the idea was to shoot like an old school rally style drift film. Where we kind of went on the snow and sort of combined Japanese toge drifting with Norwegian snow rally driving, and sort of took like a very Japanese style build, which the Cressida is. I mean, the Cressida is sort of, that's apart from the parts that David made and fabricated from scratch, all the parts on that car was Japanese. Like, they had Tokiko dampers, it's got a Cusco front suspension, it's got bride seats, genuine bride seats, it's got all these Japanese parts on it, and the whole idea was to make something that could have been made in Japan in the 80s. So it's a very car culture homage, to those cars. And it's so taking that and placing it in this Norwegian rally stage in the snow was sort of the idea.
So was that like a just sort of a second go at what you'd done in the first place, or was it a reaction to what you'd done in the first film?
Neither. It was just us wanting to make another film. I didn't really
just for fun
too much. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But that the first film was a huge success obviously helped. I mean, also, most people, the comments, that's the cool thing with the Cressidas. All the comments on social media about that car has been positive. Like there was, I can't remember the numbers now, but at one point we had like thousands of likes and like 3 dislikes or something on that video.
Yeah.
And that told me that car, it did exactly what I wanted it to do. It was sort of fly under the radar and just be this positive message that you don't have to be rich or skilled at fabricating or anything to have fun.
So it's like you finally found an outlet for what's truly your vision of drifting, and
yeah,
because
kind of, yeah.
I think because of that reflection, I think it's always people respond when they can see somebody doing something with real passion. I think.
And also the underdog aspect of it. People always want to root for the underdog. So I kind of created, and that was semi on purpose, that I created this car that was an obvious underdog amongst all the other cars. And it was, I remember coming to Gatebil for the first time. We did like one Gatebil event at the beginning of the year, and it kind of got some attention. And already on the second big Gatebil, which was at Rudskogen in July, I was invited to be one of the 4 cars on display at the Speed Hunter stand, which was like the biggest stand at Gatebil at the time. It was a big deal, I remember. And thanks to Rod Chong, he was the guy who he saw that car and that's cool. We're gonna lift it up, and they had an article about it at Speed Hunters, and it sort of became this symbol, I guess, of what you could do without spending a fortune, and also this I just fit. It just fit into the. It was time. It was the right time and the right place.
I think for me, I really enjoy that somebody like Rod Chong, who's obviously been around and photographed some incredible cars and done some amazing things. But for him and Speed Hunters to still have an affinity with a car that's so simple and just so, backyard, I guess, is a good way of putting it. It's built in a shed. No, I don't mean
it's literally built in a shed. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just very simple.
Yeah,
and that's again, it's something that's lost. Quite.
It's simple, but it is to be honest, it is good. Like it's everything we've done to that car has been calculated, and we haven't done more than we had to do, but the things that we've done really works. Like it did have really good suspension on it. Like the entire suspension was custom made with adjustable bars with the ball joints on them, and equal length four link in the rear, and a custom front suspension with steering lock. And it's still a good chassis. It's a stiff, well balanced, good car, but it's low power, definitely, and low grip. But it's not a bad car by any means.
So was it all the YouTube money that then made it possible for you to buy your NSX?
Yes,
you got an NSX
all the hundreds of euros that I almost made.
Yeah, we forgot to monetize.
We did monetize, but I don't want to discourage you because you're starting this YouTube channel now, and I really want you to do well.
I'm not doing it for money.
This is not going to make you rich.
No. I have no intention of that whatsoever.
No.
So you've got to the point where you're making stable money is effectively what you're saying. So you've actually got a reasonable income, and you don't have to worry about just being able to put, food in your mouth effectively and petrol in the car.
I don't.
So
no more. I vowed actually when I started working in the film industry and I realized this is a steady-ish income and a lot better than the web design work, and also a lot healthier. You know, just getting out and working with other people rather than just sitting at home doing web design. I realized, like, for my mental health, it was a huge step in the right direction, and that becomes like a positive energy that you sort of bring, and more positive things happen, and you meet more people, and you like a lot of new opportunities open up, and it's just sort of just got the ball rolling with the whole Cressida thing. That so the Cressida, you know, obviously led to all this, and then started working pretty much full time, doing commercials and doing all this cool stuff. So I think so. The NSX is definitely an investment in a way. And I didn't really plan on buying it because I was going to buy a house. But
I mean, it's better than a house, so really, isn't it? It's an NSX. Come on.
It's so much cooler than a house. No, but so the thing is that I was in a bit of debt. Like, you know, you over the years I've like had this little debt here and there, and I spent a year and a half or maybe 2 paying off all those debts, like really doing well, like getting my finances back in order. And just, you know, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't. So at the point where I was at the lowest point, I couldn't go and buy a house. I couldn't get a loan or anything because I didn't really have a steady income. Whereas now I was getting to the point where I could actually, you know, I can actually now prove that I'm working steady and creating some income. So I went to the bank. I got the loan for a house. I looked at a house. I bid on a house. And just as I was about to, you know, keep bidding on the house, the bank called me and withdrew the loan because of an old student loan that I had that I hadn't paid off yet. And that was like nothing. It was, you know, I don't know, another couple of months and I would have cleared that as well. But I was like, but the house is for sale now. And by buying the house, I will reduce my monthly expenses, and you know, this makes sense. And they were like, no.
Wow, that's
so I got
ruthless.
Pissed off, so I bought the NSX.
I mean, it's kind of a similar investment. I would say potentially you've made more money on an NSX now than you would have buying a house, depending on the house.
Well, at least, I'm guessing about the same, like percentage-wise.
That's
I would
insane.
say probably about the same.
Yeah, that's a completely insane.
And that's the thing. So that was my idea. Like, so I called another bank and I said, well, I couldn't buy a house, but I want to invest my money in something, because otherwise, you know, when you make money and you don't really have expenses, you just waste them. Like, it's not. Yeah. I didn't make enough to actually like put money aside, like to the point where I felt that I could save up for anything. But I made enough that if I had a loan, I could pay it off. So,
yeah, that makes sense.
And as I said, I have no financial sense whatsoever, so I'm not very good at planning or saving money. So I figured I need to invest in something, and I need to invest in something that I know. Like, I can't invest in stocks or like something like that because I have no idea how that works. So I need to invest in something that I know, and I know cars. So and over the years I've sold so many cars that I could have made a lot of money on. Something is beeping here. I'm sorry. Just a GoPro. Okay, so a little edit there probably. So over the years I've sold so many cars that I could have made a lot of money on. Like, I think I mentioned this off camera, but I had a 64 Volkswagen split bus that I sold for like 1,600 euros or something. Which is
like, anyone who knows Volkswagens now knows you're a complete idiot.
That's a 25,000 euro car now.
And the rest,
easily.
yeah.
So, and I had like, that's just one of many cars that I've sold that I should never have. Like, I basically gave them away. But at the time, it was the right thing to do. But
But it has all worked out for you though, because now, just there's the problem with these conversations is that we could talk about any one of these topics for a huge amount of time.
Hours.
Really, yeah.
Yep.
So, and like, we can talk NSX, or like, what's it like to drive, and but now
we should do a podcast just about NSXs because it's an amazing car.
But that's just basically you and Al Clark can just have a chat because you're the only guys.
Let's do it. Let's get him on.
He'll be up for it. He loves his NSX. But
You know why he bought the NSX?
Because you had one.
I gave him I let him have a lap at the Nürburgring.
Oh yeah, you
He got to
corrupted
drive
him.
it for a lap, and after that, I remember him applauding down the straight afterwards.
What, is it,
And
and
then
his own
the
driving or
same,
the car?
the same evening, he was on his phone looking for NSXs, and the day after, he bought one.
He knows what he likes. But
yeah. But as you say, like, it's a good investment. That car has. I didn't buy it to be flashy. I didn't buy it necessarily because I wanted an NSX. I knew it was a really cool car, but I'd never really had like a desire for it. But I found this car really cheap, and well, it wasn't really cheap, but I ended up buying it really cheap. So yeah, it's definitely been a good investment, and not a fun one.
Well, to me now, I mean, it's a beautiful way to kind of, because we do need to wrap up at some point, but it's a beautiful kind of way to kind of get towards that wrap up, in that the journey you've sort of shared with us is so all over the place and so up and so down, and particularly like coming from somewhere that's a really like, and I think a lot of people can relate to being in a really down and out shitty state of mind and in a shitty place in their life, and I do swear intentionally to make those points, because I think it is that, it is a nasty or horrible place. But now you've got the Cressida, you've done work with Moviebird, you've worked your way up, you've bought an NSX, and now just the crowning glory, before I ask you if you're coming drifting again, but everybody needs to know that you're now racing stupidly fast Lamborghinis.
Yeah.
Your life is not a normal life. Just if you were unaware, Fredrik, what you do is ridiculous. Yeah. So you're racing Lamborghini. Tell me about Lamborghinis, man, because I know Phil Morrison's got one, and you've driven them, and that's all I know.
One. Yeah. So this is also sort of just one of these things that kind of where everything just came together. So from I started going to Gatebil, or at least from a really early stage, I've sort of got to know Rodney, who's he's been a character in Gatebil for years, and he's had all these amazing cars. Like, he had a few years ago, we had a S15 Silvia J. Was it JCGT? No, what's it called? Japanese.
A 2J
GT.
in it. A 2J or 1J?
No, it was it was a S15 race car, like from the JGTC.
Oh, JTCC. Yeah.
There was one of those race cars.
Oh, wow.
But it had a Opel DTM, Opel Calibra DTM engine in it.
I mean, I feel a bit
like a V6,
ill, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's a weird combination of DTM and Japanese race cars. And he had that, and I remember that was awesome. And I remember him saying to me many, many years ago that eventually I'll put you in one, I'll have a proper race car, and I'm going to put you behind the wheel, and we're going to win races. Yeah. And when people say that, you're like, that's a really nice thing to say. It might never happen, but thanks. It's cool. And 2 years ago, he called me up on a Thursday and asked me what I was doing that weekend, and I said, nothing planned. And he said, you need to come to Rudskogen now, because you have qualifying in the morning.
Right, okay.
I'm like, what? So I just ran home, threw my driving gear in the car, drove down to Rudskogen, jumped in the Lamborghini, qualified, and raced it.
That's crazy. What Lamborghini was that? Because
that was a Huracan Super Trofeo, which is the cup car that they use in all over the world, actually, with the Lamborghini Super Trofeo.
I mean, all I can think of is truffles, but what power is the Lamborghini Super Truffle?
So the Super Truffle is it's a normally aspirated, pretty much a stock engine, so it's got 620 horsepower.
Okay, so it's quick.
It's basically, so the cup car compared to, for example, a GT3 car is a bit more modest. It's got some body kits and some aero stuff on it, but it's actually, most of the car is stock. It's got the Erlin suspension and the X-Track sequential gearbox, so it's converted to rear-wheel drive. But other than that, like all the suspension and brakes and steering and everything is stock. So it's a really, really nice race car. It's almost as fast as a GT3. It's got a little bit less aero.
Didn't you do something silly like go out
good.
and win right away? Was that? Did I hear that right?
Yeah.
So you've never.
So I think I was 2 seconds faster than any of the other drivers who'd driven the car up until that point.
Just to clarify, you haven't raced at this point since the year 2000.
2000, and I think my last race was 2003, but that was like one race.
And this is 2018 that you start racing Lamborghinis again, and you're 2 seconds faster than everybody racing Lamborghinis at that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was good.
Right.
But I loved it. Like it fit. Like that car suited me.
Yeah.
Perfectly right away. it's you have to be a bit what do you say? Like you have to be smooth but firm. Like you have to drive it properly. Like you have to drive it on the limit completely all the time.
Yeah.
Because it's the cars that we're competing against is like even crazier cars. Like a tube frame chassis cars that weigh 1,000 kilos and have like more than 1,000 horsepower. So we were, compared to those cars, this was like a road car.
Yeah.
But we still managed to compete. We didn't win all the races, but we did.
You're competitive.
Usually. Very competitive, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
So you clearly did well because you've been asked to drive again. I mean, we had to postpone this conversation because you were actually going out testing again, like yesterday, the day before yesterday or something.
Oh,
a couple of days ago,
which is 3 days ago. Yeah.
And now you're in
absolutely. I mean,
a faster one, yeah.
So that's an even faster one. So the team that I drive for is called Cyrus Engineering. It's a engineering company.
Yeah.
And they've built this car. So they started up by buying some Super Trofeos to go racing, and it was a kind of a business plan behind everything. It's a company that sort of and they wanted to build their own custom Lamborghini, to compete, but also to sell as a hypercar. So I kind of like they brought me in to both be a coach for the other drivers and sort of help out with the development of the car. And we spent all last year, we raced in the Norwegian GT Championship to sort of get knowledge and get mileage with the car so that I can be as prepared as possible when we start testing the new car.
Yeah, and you did mention that you worked with, just to drop another drift name in there from back in the day, you did mention that you'd worked with Ben Broke-Smith, Bonbon, from String Theory Garage, based at Caffeine and Machine, says a couple of plugs for him. But so you've still got that connection to the drift world all the way through this because you did stuff with Moviebird with Ben as well. So you're still, you're still there to a degree.
So Ben has been a good friend of mine since Birmingham Wheels. So we stayed in touch over the years, and he's been working with us for. He's actually been part of a couple of big film projects that I brought him over here to work with me. And also I brought him over to do the setup and the alignments and stuff on the Lambos. Because to those of you guys who don't know, like, so as you said, he's running a String Theory garage, and he's a wizard when it comes to alignments and setup on cars. And so if you ever need a car aligned, just check him out for sure. And I brought him over to help me with as a race engineer on the Lambo. So he did all the setup work, and we developed that car, and we found more and more lap time in it. So it was a really fun experience to work with him and make that car even faster. So he was on board for a while, and now this year is the first year of the LP 1200, which is then 1200 horsepower carbon.
I did wonder.
It's ridiculous.
I was thinking, does it weigh 1200 kilos or is that power? So
that both.
Oh, it's even.
So it's
12.
It's 1200 kilos, 1200 horsepower, and generates 1200 kilos of downforce.
Wow. Is it 1200 million pounds as well? Probably.
Something like that. Yeah.
So you went testing in that, and immediately you're crazy fast in that thing as well. I mean, you told me you're 10 seconds a lap off an F1 car.
That's correct.
I mean, it sounds like, in racing terms, people say, oh, well, you're a second off, or, but actually 10 seconds behind a modern F1 car is completely ridiculous. I mean, that's an incredibly fast car for what is essentially a tuned road car. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, it's got a few. So they've replaced about, I think they manufactured about 70% of the parts that are on the car in-house, but it's still sort of the same concept. Like, it's the same geometry. They've just improved like bits and pieces and made it lighter and stronger and more powerful. And the most amazing thing is, I know a lot of people, before they saw the car on track, were like, yeah, but this. When you see a project like that, even when you see it up close, like, so many things can go wrong with a project like that.
Oh yeah.
So much that has to sort of, so many people involved and so much trust. And to drive that car out on the track and realize immediately, like, this car is amazing. That was such a good feeling. I think that was a great feeling for all of us involved. That car just out of the box was just fantastic. It drives perfectly. It's definitely, of course, you need to tweak the setup and stuff, but. And for me, working with the aero is probably the main challenge going forward. But just having a car like that,
it's a new thing, isn't it? Really, to constantly have a new challenge, I think, is part of the enjoyment of motorsport and cars.
Yeah.
Just cars in general, just always doing something and learning something new, because they're so complicated. You can never really master every discipline, I don't think.
No.
So
no. But you can always, so even if you're winning, you can always improve, and I think that's definitely what drives me, because I need that motivation, that push, so just working with that car is so rewarding, because everything you do, you get instant feedback. You know right away if you've gone wrong. Like, I kind of like that. I like the instant feel, like, okay, that didn't work, or that worked, or working with the engineers, and I think that's really a lot of fun, and it's business wise. I mean, the goal eventually is to sell this car and make more of them. So the fact that it just works and it's reliable out of the box, it saves us so much hassle in the long run, and it immediately sort of gives us that confidence that this is going to be, this thing is. When you want to sell something, you need to believe in it, and I think all of us now really believe in this project.
Well, I wish you all the best with that project. I think I've no doubt that you're going to be successful with it, because you're Fredrik fucking Sorlie, and that's what you do. But what do you do next, man? This is wild. Are we going to see Fredrik Sorlie competing in, England? You're going to come back to England and do a competition again, or when we can, obviously. We're a bit stuck at the moment.
I will not. I will. Yeah. Well. Yeah. That's the. So. Yeah. What going forward? Obviously, with the situation we're in now, is a bit hard to tell, because we have plans, but at the moment they're all on hold. Yeah. We want to go. We definitely want to go back to the Nürburgring and see if we can post a proper lap time in the LP 1200, because we honestly believe, you never know, but I do know the track a little bit. I think even without pushing 100%, I think still think we can post a really, really quick lap time in that car.
Have you got an estimate?
So we hope to do.
Are we starting 8s or 7s, or where are we going?
I think we are talking 6s. So I think so the 640 is that's the sort of record lap time on street tires.
Yeah.
I think so we're gonna go there on street tires and see what we can do, but I don't know if we're gonna go that fast, but I think we're going to be close.
If you do, basically, you've just dropped me an exclusive about the birth of... So what I'll do is I'll repeat this bit of video in next year, and then I'll do an Al Clark and get like 3 million views in 20 minutes. And then I'll be rich. That's it. Thanks, Fredrik.
Yeah, maybe. I think I definitely think that it will get some attention if we manage to do what we want to do. Obviously, we don't do it for the attention. Well, or actually, that's not quite true, because it is definitely a marketing effort. Like we're doing it because we want to, achieve our goals. But at the same time, it's definitely a market value or marketing value in doing that. Because if you want to sell the fastest car money can buy, you need to be the fastest car money can buy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I hope you do it. What about drifting?
Yeah.
Am I going to see you drifting or what?
Probably, but I don't know if I'll ever compete like on a. I kind of want to. I do feel that's sort of the one thing that I never really got to do, and I never got to prove anything. And that's another thing. So we can talk about this for hours as well, but. Every racing driver or drifter, we're doing this because let's be honest, we like the attention and we have something to prove, and we're all a bit insecure and we need that validation. maybe. And I think that's a healthy thing. Yeah, I mean, it's just having that. You need to, whether you want to prove it to yourself or to others, I don't really care. Just if you have something to prove, just do it. And I do feel that I want to go drifting competitive or compete in drifting, but I don't think it will happen. I don't think I will make that choice unless it sort of comes naturally and an opportunity arises. But the effort that goes into it, it's.
I think you've already potentially opened the door to opportunity by saying that if the opportunity should arise, that you're potentially willing and prepared to go for it. So
yeah, of course. I mean, but I don't think I cannot be the driving force behind a project of that magnitude. But I'm definitely willing to be a part of it.
You can't be the driving force, but you can be the driver. So
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I'm going to wrap us up, Fredrik, because we went through a million things.
Probably.
And finally, we've got to the end of the first take, honestly, without any of the camera equipment or audio equipment failing. But on a final note, is there anything you kind of want to leave the viewers with? As a message for them, or just tell us to bugger off, or like, this is your time, man.
I think let's go back to just what we talked about earlier. That if you want to start doing drifting or racing and you're kind of scared to do it, if there's even a slight chance you can, just do it. Like, we have one life. We're given this amazing opportunity to wander this earth for a few years and just make the most of it. Don't be scared of. Just don't die wishing you'd done something. I mean, that's probably like my philosophy in life.
Say yes.
Yes, say yes.
I'm all right with that. Well, Fredrik,
thank
you very much for that. I really appreciate you coming on. We definitely need to. I think we should do this again in the future and just kind of try and iron out more of the sort of approach to technique and just more of the things that we sort of danced on getting into, but obviously,
it could be cool to go into details on some topics sometime.
Yeah,
that would be fun.
For sure.
Just anytime.
Good. Right, so we will do that, but for now, I just want to say thank you to everyone that watched us waffle away complete nonsense for an hour or so. Well, no, it's not nonsense. I think you've had an amazing life, Fredrik, and I'm glad that I got this chance to share the things you've done with all the people that choose to watch my channel on YouTube. I'm trying to do something that really connects people back to what I believe drifting is, and to the roots of drifting, and to the people that kind of made it all happen. So thank you, Fredrik. Thank you, everyone out there watching.
Thank you.
And we'll see you. Well, I'll see you maybe next week, or the one out. Yeah, 2 weeks. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Anyway, see you later. Bye.
Yep.